Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, just fired an experimental ballistic missile that they claim reaches a speed of Mach 10. Now, at that speed, there's nothing currently that can shoot it down. At least that's what they're saying. Now, let me share this with you. This is from Politico. Putin confirms Russia fired new ballistic missile at Ukraine. Ukrainian President Zelensky says the move shows how terrified Moscow is of Ukraine. And, or maybe it's a message showing that they have a missile that could reach just about anywhere at a speed that can't be competed with. It's not a good sign, folks. It's like tit for tat. Well, I'll show you mine. Mine's bigger. President Vladimir Putin confirmed that Russia fired a new hypersonic intermediate-range ballistic missile into Ukraine on Thursday in response to Kyiv's use of advanced weapons provided by the U.S. and U.K. earlier this week, marking another escalation in the intensifying war. So what is the Orshenik missile? Let's talk about it for a minute. I have a free webinar coming up in less than an hour with Jay Matta and myself. Turn your passion into profit. Be successful doing what you love to do. We're going to show you the latest trends in the markets. Now, if you want to be on the invite list, if you want to join us for the webinar, send me a text at 970-616-5677 or send me an email at leakproject@gmail.com. And let's get back to the presentation right now. Reuters.com. What is Russia's Orshenik missile? President Vladimir Putin said Russia had struck Ukraine with a new hypersonic medium-range ballistic missile in response to Kyiv's use of U.S. and British missiles against Russia. Orshenik means hazel tree. Putin said on Thursday that the Ukraine war was escalating towards a global conflict after the United States and Britain allowed Ukraine to strike deeper into Russia with their missiles and warned the West that Moscow could strike back. In direct response to Ukraine's use of U.S. and British missiles November 21st, Vladimir Putin said Russia had launched an Orshenik, one of its newest intermediate-range missiles, at a defense enterprise in the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. The city is home to the missile and space rocket company Pivdenmash, known as Mach to Russians. The missile, this is where it gets interesting, is a hypersonic ballistic missile. It traveled 10 times the speed of sound, and so it could not be intercepted. Russian sources claim the range was 5,000 kilometers or 3,100 miles, allowing Russia to strike most of Europe and the west coast of the United States. Natalie M., who is a Russian military expert, said it could carry 6 to 8 conventional or even nuclear warheads. It was probably already in service, according to Yuri Polyaka, a prominent Ukrainian-born pro-Russian military blogger. The Pentagon says the missile that Russia fired was based on the RS-26 Rubis intercontinental ballistic missile. Ukraine's Air Force said Russia had fired an ICBM at Dnipro, though the U.S. said that was incorrect. ICBMs are defined as having a range greater than 3,400 miles. President Zelensky said that a Russian attack with a new type of ballistic missile was a clear and severe escalation, and called for worldwide condemnation. Well, it's interesting after he says that, after what they do. I mean, nobody wins in war, folks. I'm doing my best to look at this from a neutral approach, and I'm just reading the news here. This is directly from Reuters and AP, etc. It's not good. It's not good. It's like, well, you launched your missiles, check out my missiles. And then we've also got unconventional warfare dealing with right now. Listen to this. Danish Navy reportedly boards Chinese ship suspected in European undersea cable sabotage. Sweden's defense ministry put freighter at the time and place of the disruption. So you can read about this over on Yahoo. And it's basically, if it wasn't an accident, it's similar to unconventional warfare. The Danish Navy had boarded and detained the Chinese bulk carrier Yipeng 3 in the Danish Straits near the exit of the Great Belt, according to reports in Eurasia Daily and Defense 24. The detention reportedly took place on the evening of November 18th. Officials have not verified those reports. However, according to Financial Times sources, Swedish authorities are carefully studying the Chinese vessel. Denmark sent out 2 ships, the HDMS Viddenborgen an ocean patrol frigate, and the DNK Navy Patrol P-525, a smaller patrol craft, to shadow the Chinese bulk carrier Yipeng 3. Authorities suspect the Chinese vessel is connected with the cutting of 2 undersea internet cables that connect most of Finland and Sweden to Central Europe, reports MSN. The undersea cable connecting Sweden to Lithuania was the first to be hit, sustaining damage Sunday, November 17th, approximately. The Finland-Germany undersea cable was cut the following day. Tuesday, the Swedish Ministry of Civil Defense announced that it had recorded the Yipeng 3's movement and placed it within the vicinity of possible sabotage events. Now, according to the public records, though, the bulk carrier left Ust-Luga anchorage 50 miles east of St. Petersburg in Russia, November 15th, and its next destination, port said in Egypt. We don't have any information on her crew or what type of cargo she's carrying, though. Time of the writing, MarineTraffic.com puts the Chinese ship in the middle of the Kattegat, the sea bound by Denmark on the west and Sweden in the east. The smaller Danish patrol ship is immediately beside it, while the Viddenborgen is located some 15 to 20 miles southwest of the 2 vessels. Although the website says that this position was last updated more than 7 hours ago, Sweden says that it has already dispatched units on the scene of the cut undersea cables to examine the damage. The police are investigating the incident. The action of the Danish ships is likely part of a coordinated effort to determine how and why the undersea cables were cut, especially as authorities are saying sabotage. Now, this is just a few months after NATO said Russia was mapping undersea fiber optic cables as part of its strategy to disrupt communications. The involved ships, flagged by China, the 2 countries are, if not exactly allies, at least friendly on friendly terms. Then we go back to last year. There was another Chinese cargo ship that reportedly dragged an anchor for hundreds of kilometers, which damaged pipelines in the Baltic that connects Finland and Estonia. Finland contends the incident was international and intentional. So we have a lot going on, ladies and gentlemen. And with the world in the condition that it's in, with the political leaders as polarized as they are, it's an exciting time to be alive, is it not? Let's see what the Atlantic Council says about this suspected sabotage by a Chinese vessel in the Baltic Sea. Speaks to a wider threat. Officially, the Yipeng 3 is just a bulk carrier, one of countless ships carrying everything from grain to coal, aluminum to fertilizer. But as the ship left Russia's Baltic port of Ust-Luga last week, the Chinese flagship may have had a rather different mission. Authorities and open source intelligence community have zeroed in on the Yipeng 3 as potentially responsible for cutting 2 undersea cables on her journey through the Baltic Sea, and Germany's defense ministry has already called this a hybrid attack. More such incidents should be expected. November 17th, an undersea cable connecting Sweden and Lithuania was cut. Less than 24 hours later, the only communications cable connecting Finland and Germany was also severed. As OSINT investigators quickly gathered, the Yipeng 3 was at the scene both times. Swedish, Lithuanian, Finnish, and German authorities have not yet publicly blamed the bulk carrier, but as she sailed from the Baltic Sea towards Denmark's Great Belt and from there towards the Atlantic Ocean, her actions have drawn scrutiny. By the time the bulk carrier reached the Great Belt on November 19th, she was being followed by Danish Navy vessels. November 19, Germany's defense minister, Boris Pistorius, expressed what most observers had also concluded. One had to assume, he said, that the incidents were hybrid aggression. He described them as sabotage. Indeed, given that cables and pipelines are painstakingly detailed on navigational charts, it's nearly impossible for a ship to sever not just 1 but 2 cables by accident. This is the second time within about a year that a Chinese merchant vessel had apparently damaged undersea cables in the Baltic Sea. Last time, October 2023. The container ship New Polar Bear quickly left the scene after dragging its anchor across a gas pipeline, and it appears 2 undersea cables. It then sailed through the Great Belt and continued northward along the Norwegian coast, and from there onto Russia's Arctic coast. There wasn't very much Sweden, Finland, or Estonia, in whose exclusive economic zones the damage had occurred, could do except ask China to cooperate in the investigation. Beijing declined their request. Was this too sabotage? Question mark. Was the Chinese government involved? Question mark. What about the Russian government? After all, New Polar Bear had just left a Russian port before the cables and the pipeline were hit. The article goes on to say undersea cables and pipelines are actually vulnerable to geopolitically motivated harm. Such aggression can be carried out by persons and entities that officially have no link to the government instigating the aggression. The world's fast-growing offshore wind farms are acutely vulnerable too. Land-based infrastructure, for that matter, is also vulnerable. And in recent months, Sweden and Finland have seen break-ins into water plants. But the world's oceans are especially exposed. They are a global commons guarded against military assaults by countries, navies, but otherwise protected mostly by a collection of treaties, conventions, and rules agreed by countries over the generations. I discussed this in depth in reports for the Atlantic Council's Maritime Threats Project. Read all about it, folks. AtlanticCouncil.com. In a world of aggression and new threats that appear on the horizon, this vast shift of political drama, the global landscape of fire and ice, we live in amazing times, folks. So hopefully cooler heads will prevail. Be prepared, not scared. Be excellent to each other. Check back daily for new content. Check us out on Patreon and subscribe to our Rapid Fire News channel, ESN. YouTube handle ESN42 IC News. Thank you so much, everybody. Be the change you want to see, and may the force be with you.